Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. My name is Taylor and this is the All About Tarot presentation. I know for some of you I might be a stranger. If you have not seen me before, I am a former employee of Adair County Library and a current librarian elsewhere in the world. But I was invited back by Sandy and Jamie to talk about tarot cards today. So thank you to them for inviting me. Thank you to you for watching this video. And just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. This is a pre-recorded presentation. I am not live on Facebook right now, unfortunately. So that does mean that I am not going to be able to answer any questions in the chat like talking to you this way. I will respond to comments, and anything that I miss, Sandy and Jamie will pass along to me. So please feel free to leave lots and lots of comments and I will get back to them as soon as I can. You won't hear me doing the talking thing when you guys leave your comments. So with all of that said, I think that is my only housekeeping. I'm pretty sure we'll go with yes. But a little bit about me before we get started. Like I said, my name is Taylor. I am a librarian and I am also very enthusiastic about tarot cards. I have been reading for about probably like a year and a half at this point. They've been kind of in my life forever. It's something that I've always been really interested in, and I decided to get super into it in probably the most nerdy way possible about a year ago. So today's presentation is going to be a little bit about the cards. It's going to be a lot about the history of tarot cards and tarot reading. And then at the end, we will have some sample readings for you guys. Everyone will leave today with a tarot reading, so please stick around until the end so that you get to do that. So how many times can I say that is the question for the day. This is the end of Big Face Taylor. I know I'm very close up and very intimidating right now. I'm going to cut away. We will go to my tabletop and I will be Little Taylor and we can talk about tarot. Let's do it. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, what even are tarot cards? If you are coming to this presentation and you don't know that, thank you for giving us a chance. If you do think that you know about them, there's probably quite a bit that you don't know. So there are 78 cards in a tarot deck, and those are used mainly in the Western world. Over here in the States, they are mainly known for being used for fortune telling or cartomancy, which is using cards to predict the future. But it is traditionally a gaming deck. It has 78 cards, like I said, 22 major arcana, and then the other number for I'm trying to do the math, I can't remember. But the other number is the minor arcana, which is kind of like a regular deck of cards that we are used to over here. It is used to play a game that's kind of like bridge or crazy eights in Europe, particularly in Southern Europe, in Southern France, Spain, and Italy. We will talk about that in a little bit. But you can see here just a bit of a preview of some of the cards and some of the different things that we will be looking at today. So that is a little bit about what they are, but where did they even come from? To find out that, we have to go way back in time, all the way back to ancient China. We are going to be starting in 9th century China in the Tang Dynasty. This is where we see the first reference to something called a leaf game. So the leaf game is, we don't know a lot about it. We don't get a lot of like artifacts or rules or things. It's mentioned in a couple manuscripts. And that's really all that we know about it, but it seems pretty reasonable that that is the first time that we see something like a card game that we would know and recognize today. We know for sure that it shows up by the 11th and 12th century. We get a lot of representations in art and people talking about it in manuscripts and that kind of thing. And that makes sense because that was around the time when paper was becoming much more widespread, much more available to regular people in China instead of just being part of the court and the nobility. So one of those relics that we have to see what an ancient Chinese playing card would have looked like. There are lots of these online. This is one of my personal favorites because I just love this dude's outfit and face. He is an entire vibe. It's so great. But this is a playing card from the Ming Dynasty, so about 1400 CE. It was found in Turpan, which is in western China, in the Xinjiang province, which is the one that you've probably heard about on the news in the western part of China. And what's important about that is that Turpan was a pretty big stop on the trading routes from China to Europe and the Middle East. And that matters to us because merchants like to bring things back with them. So we see the game start to spread westward from the old capitals out towards the trading posts and along the merchant trails out to Europe and to the Middle East, which is where we're going to be stopping next. The next cards that I have for you are Mamluk cards from the Middle East. These were, I believe, they were found in Egypt. I apologize, I don't have the place written down. I do have the time. They were recorded in about 1500 CE. It's very likely that the games were around before then, because this is a very intricate deck. As you can see, it is gorgeous, it's absolutely beautiful, and it is very, very much in the style of the Islamic Golden Age. So this is not something that that they would have picked up from a Chinese merchant and brought back with them. This was something that was produced by people in the area. So what that means for us. Mamluk is actually not a game. Mamluk is a class of people. So the Mamluk people were slave soldiers. It's very interesting. There's a whole history there that I'm not going to super get into. But what that matters for us is that soldiers are another people who have a lot of contact with others. So we can start to see this kind of cultural trade between our merchants and the soldier class who would be going to these areas in Eastern Europe and in Western Asia and bringing back things like card games. So you can see on the cards here that we are starting to get the suits settling into themselves. We have the swords, the wands or clubs, the cups, and the coins or pentacles. So the suits are starting to settle in. They look very much like pip cards, a really intricate deck, but still pretty recognizable as a playing card to a modern audience. Games that would be played with this are again going to be things like Crazy Eights and Bridge. Those are really old card games and very common for the older decks and a more traditional approach to playing cards, if you will. So these cards, again, are from the Middle East, from the Islamic Empire. These, I believe these are from Egypt. I'm like 90% sure, but don't quote me on that. But the Islamic Golden Age and the Islamic Empire was kind of the powerhouse of the Mediterranean for this time. And again, we are following our merchants and our soldiers because the next place that cards show up for our purposes is in Southern Europe. So these cards would have traveled with merchants going back and forth to Europe, either along the Mediterranean up through Turkey or across the Mediterranean into Greece and into Italy. And these cards would have gone with the merchants, would have gone with soldiers during the Crusades going back and forth, would have gone with doctors, because this is the Middle Ages in Europe, this is the Dark Ages. So there are going to be a lot of need for medical expertise. We know for sure that card games were very popular in southern Italy and throughout Europe by the 1500s, and we know that because they were banned. They were banned specifically for gambling. The tarot deck was actually named as a deck that needed to stop existing, not because of witchcraft, but because of dirty, rotten gamblers. So let's look at our first tarot deck for the day. That is the Visconti Sforza deck. So we have crossed the Mediterranean. We are in Italy now. It is the 15th century. To give you kind of a timeline of where we are at, we are in the time just before the Renaissance. So Da Vinci has just been born, Columbus has just been born, the printing press is just getting off of the ground. So we are about to go through a really interesting time period. But the tarot game first shows up in Italy around this time. So our artifact for today actually comes from Milan, from the Visconti Sforza family. So that is Bianca Maria Visconti and her husband, Francesco Sforza. And this building is the Sforza Castle that still stands today. It is absolutely beautiful. I really want to go see it. Francesco and Bianca were kind of a big deal, which is part of why we still have this deck today. Bianca's family was really powerful in Milan. They were one of the rulers. And Francesco was kind of I don't know, I can't get a good read on him. He's kind of like a gangster before gangsters, but he definitely swooped in and just basically took over Milan by marrying Bianca. Francesco would actually go on to help Milan become one of the powerhouses of the Renaissance. He's one of the reasons why Milan is still a really big deal cultural-wise today. So that's part of why this deck still exists and part of why it's still so beautiful. This deck was probably a wedding present because it's so intricate, it's gilded, it's beautifully painted, and also it's not very used. If you guys have played as many card games as I have, you know that card decks do not last very long. They tend to get torn up on the edges and get covered in various beverages and foodstuffs, and just they don't look very good after a while. And these decks still look beautiful, so they were probably something a little more special than an everyday gaming deck, like a wedding present. They're also given to Bianca around the time of the wedding, so that would make sense. But like we said before, we know that tarot was really popular around this time already. It wasn't Francesco that made it popular, he's just the one that we still have. It was, again, linked to gambling, very widespread, and specifically the game Tarocchi was banned. Tarocchi is the Italian word for the tarot deck, and we don't really know where that word comes from. Tarot is like the French way of saying tarocchi, and tarocchi doesn't really mean anything. The closest that we have record of is the word tarok. It's probably the origin, and tarok is used to refer to people who are really foolish or acting in a really dumb way, which would make sense for this game for gamblers. So that is a bit about where the first tarot deck comes from. I know we've all heard the mystical stories of how it comes from, ancient Egypt. It was handed down from, Thoth directly into the hands of the priests. That's not what happened at all. It was a game for gamblers in the south of Italy, or the south of Europe, and the north of Italy. So I apologize if it's been a little bit disappointing for you. I promise the actual story of how it becomes a tool for divination is much more interesting. And for that part of the story, we are going to have to skip up north into the origin of all terrible ideas, and that is France. So we are fast forwarding way up to the 1700s, the mid 1700s to the end of the 1700s in France. So we are going to be dealing with this handsome young gentleman today. This is Antoine Cour de Gébelin. Antoine is a very interesting man. He would go on to have the first record of the tarot cards being used for divination purposes. He wasn't the first person to do it. It's pretty likely that it just kind of naturally evolved to be happening. Cartomancy is a really old idea and just kind of happens with anybody who sits around with a deck for too long. But Antoine was the first person to write it down as far as I can tell. So a little bit about his life. Antoine grew up a Protestant in a very Catholic France. There was a lot of religious fighting at this time. He was the son of a Huguenot leader, which was a big deal. And in his area of France, it was still very, very much not a good thing to be a Protestant. So he actually spent much of his childhood in Switzerland in hiding. And that really formed his idea of religion and about his country. He grew up and became ordained in the Protestant faith and became a leader for religious freedoms, and he really fought for that idea. So how does that all kind of lead to tarot cards? So at this time in France, we are pre-revolutionary France, and we are in the age of Enlightenment, which, if you don't remember from school, is basically a time when everybody was like, how can we be the best people possible? So this is a time when everybody was really looking back at the origins of society, of culture, specifically at the Greeks and Romans, and trying to figure out how we can be more like them and less like the terrible that we are. It's kind of a recurring theme in the world. But Antoine, one of the things that he looked at was cultural things and kind of how our culture and society has changed from the primitive world to the modern world. He actually wrote a series of publications, we'll call them, and they were titled, I'm going to look down because I have to read the French. They were titled Le Monde Primitif, analysé et comparé avec le monde moderne, considéré dans l'histoire civile, religieuse et allégorique du calendrier ou almanach, pardon, avec des figures en taille douce. So basically, the primitive world analyzed and compared with the modern world, specifically looking at civil, religious, and cultural history, which is very broad and covers a lot of topics. And yeah, that's exactly what it did. He talked about everything from like maps to religion to language to tarot cards. He has 50 pages, excuse me. He has 50 pages of a chapter on tarot cards, and he talks about them being used for divination purposes. And he gives us some wonderful images of what the cards looked like. You were looking at his magician right here. So you can see the evolution from the Visconti Sforza magician, where we still have the table and the figure and his fancy hat. The most important part of any magician is the fancy hat. But he's shifted forward a little bit. He's holding up one hand. These are all things that would become important later on in the designs of the tarot deck that we are most familiar with today. But for Antoine, it was pretty much just a record of a weird thing that was happening in his life. He doesn't seem to have really tried to do anything about it. As far as I can tell, didn't really do much with that knowledge. The person who did do things with that knowledge is our next figure for today, and that is Étalle. So next up we have Étalle, and this is coming from around the exact same time as Antoine's publications. Antoine published the Le Monde Primitif in about 1781-ish, right? Yes, about 1781-ish. And Étalle began publishing his tarot information in 1785. So he really took this idea and ran with it. But you'll notice his picture is very, very small. That's because he's much less impressive of a person as Antoine is. He doesn't really have as interesting of an origin story, which I think is arguably much more interesting. His real name was Jean-Baptiste Eliot, and he was born to merchants, grew up to become a merchant, got married, was gonna do merchant stuff forever, and then for some reason just started breeding cards. So good for him. He is the first professional tarot occultist that we know of. So the first person to use tarot cards for the purpose of divination, the first one on record anyway. And he published in 1770 Le Manière de se récréer avec le jeu de cartes, which is ways to pass the time with cards, or ways to tell the future with cards is really what it was all about. And then a couple years later, after Antoine published his work, Étalle noted the same phenomenon and published a follow-up in 1785 called Manière de se récréer avec le jeu de cartes nommé tarot. I apologize for my French. It's been a while since I've studied. But that is ways to pass the time with a deck of cards called the tarot. And he is the first person to really ascribe these meanings to the cards and really formalize the reading of tarot cards. So these are some recreations of his decks. We have the Magician and the Two of Cups. You can see on the top, it has the information about what they would kind of mean. So on our Two of Cups, we have Amour and Désir, or love and desire, and then Maladie for our Magician, or maladies, sickness, that kind of thing. So Atela really gave us the origins of what would go on to become the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and what we know about tarot today. He was the first person to describe the major and minor arcana, and he added the 4 elements and astrology into the mix in his Book of Thoth that was published a little later on. A lot of our information about the modern tarot deck really finds its roots back with Atela and his publications. So we owe quite a bit to this mysterious merchant in France with a very tiny portrait. So now that we have a formalized tarot deck, there's really nothing to stop it from taking off. So we are fast forwarding a little bit to the 1800s France, to the post-revolutionary France. And if you know anything about the French Revolution, you know that it did not end great. This is a time when people are really disillusioned and dissatisfied. They've seen a lot of tragedy in their area and in their families and their loved ones. So they are looking for something to kind of latch onto to inform them about how to move on from this. We see the same thing later on in the US Civil War and afterwards with the rise of spiritualism in the US. And the pretty much exact same thing happened in France, where in the fallout of tragedy, we start to look for answers beyond the things that we've always been told that maybe didn't help us as much as we were hoping. So this gives birth to the rise of occultism. We are going to be following Dear Monsieur Eliphas Lévy, sort of. I'm not going to talk too much about him. I just think he has a cool name and a nice portrait. But Eliphas was one of the leaders of the school of Hermeticism. So Hermeticism is based on the Hermetic texts, which were rediscovered during the Renaissance. They were originally published in the 100 to 300 CE era. And they deal with Greco and Egyptian ideas, kind of marry them in the middle. They're very interesting. But the main thing about the Hermetic texts is that they look for a way to marry religion and science and make them play nice together. And the way that they do that is through magic. And that is really what the Hermeticism school is all about. So there are 3 major disciplines in the Hermetic order that they study. There is the study of alchemy, which is knowledge of matter and life. There's the study of astrology, which is knowledge of the heavens. And then they study theurgy, which is knowledge of the gods or of magic. And the belief is that through knowledge and through studying these different things, you can achieve rebirth or achieve an immortal life. Whether you believe that is entirely up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to believe, but that is what the Hermetic school is kind of based on. So this really takes off, and this influences the next step for our tarot cards as they become much more widespread and much more popular. And we are going to be skipping across the ocean over to our neck of the woods with our friends with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Skipping across the channel to the English-speaking part of the world with things that are much easier to pronounce with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So there are 3 main schools of tarot. We are going to be really doing a deep dive into one of them and briefly talking about a second one. The school that we're not really going to talk about is the Tarot de Marseille, and that is the deck that we have kind of been talking about so far. It is really the gaming version of the tarot. This is the one that you'll see a lot in Europe and in the non-English speaking world. In the English speaking world, we usually deal with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and then a little bit more with the Thoth deck, which will be the second one that I talk about here in a minute. We're gonna be starting off with kind of the kings and queens of tarot. That is the Rider-Waite-Smith. The Rider-Waite-Smith deck was first published in 1910 in London. It was published by the Rider Publishing House, which is still an active publishing house. It was known at the time and is still known today for its occult and mystical publications. It's currently an imprint of Penguin, so if you're interested in seeing what they're looking for, you can Google it. They're still doing exactly what you would expect them to do. But the other 2 parts of the name, the Waite comes from Arthur Edward Waite. Here he is, our handsome man. Arthur was kind of one of the leaders in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in London. And through that, he met Pamela Colman Smith, who is the artist of the deck. Arthur came up with the meanings, and Pamela came up with the art to complement it. Pamela is arguably the much more interesting person. She was a really cool artist. She did illustrations for people like Bram Stoker and William Butler Yeats, and really kind of made a name for herself. And unfortunately, her entire legacy pretty much is in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So this picture is actually a promotional photo for her promoting the deck in an occult magazine. As far as I can tell, she didn't dress like this all the time. It's just the coolest picture of her, so of course I had to use it. But so the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is very much inspired by the gaming decks. It follows a lot of the same numbering structure. It really solidifies the standard for the numbers in the major arcana. It flips a couple of things around from the gaming deck, but it really gives us our iconography for both the major arcana and the minor arcana that is still used in many, many, many decks today. So there are a lot of other influences besides the traditional gaming deck, though. Pamela very clearly went and looked at a bunch of different decks. You can kind of trace her influences through various exhibits that were in London at the time. There's also a lot of things like Christian stories influencing the deck. Things like Gabriel blowing the trumpet on Judgment Day on the Judgment card. So this was always a deck that was meant to be easily recognizable. You were supposed to be able to look at the symbols and kind of get what was going on. And it was really, really popular from the get-go because of that. It was something that was easy to understand, and it was very commercialized from the beginning. So again, don't believe all the rumors you hear about the tarot deck, because you do not have to have it, granted down to you from generations, because from the very beginning, it was always meant to be purchased and commercialized, unfortunately. I think that's all I have on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. We will look at this deck a little bit more later when I talk about card meanings. But for now, I promised I would talk about the Thoth deck. We are going to briefly discuss Aleister Crowley. All right, let's finish up for our history part of today. Thank you guys, you're such troopers. We're gonna finish up with, full disclosure, a dude that I just do not like. This is going to be about the Thoth deck, which was published by Aleister Crowley and Lady Freda Harris. So the deck was published in 1969. It was actually designed much earlier. Both Crowley and Lady Harris had passed away by the time it was published, which I think kind of adds to the mystique of the deck, if you will. But it was first designed by Aleister Crowley, who was kind of known for just being really exhausting and really full of himself. He was also in the Hermetic Order, the same one that Arthur and Pamela were in. But he was like way more exhausting about it. He would do things like call himself the Beast 666 because he's so hardcore. He's so hardcore, you guys. So hardcore, I can't even handle it. And like his law that he lived by, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, because he's just so impressive. The good news is that he didn't really have a lot of friends. Most people realized that he was very irritating to be around. But one of the few friends that he did have was Lady Freda Harris. Lady Harris comes from a very rich and noble background. She was married to an MP in the UK. She was very wealthy and very well-to-do and very interested in occultism and in the Hermetic Order and in Aleister Crowley. And honestly, she is, again, the much more interesting part of this story. When Crowley first set out to make a tarot deck, he was just gonna kind of make a run-of-the-mill, same thing everybody else was doing. The reason that the Thoth deck is so weird is almost entirely because of Lady Freda. She really encouraged Crowley to reach out and try to do something really interesting and different by doing things like incorporating more Egyptian mythology, incorporating the Kabbalah, and like really leaning into astrology and a lot of other different occult practices. She also encouraged him to do his own interpretations. So in the Thoth deck, there is no justice, there is no strength. Those are replaced with his own ideas of what those concepts should be. And that is not because of him, that is entirely because Lady Frida was like, hey, you should like try. But the deck was not finished until after Crowley's death and was not published until a few years after Lady Frida's death. It wasn't published until 1969 and really kind of took off in the counterculture scene, as did Aleister Crowley's legacy, because he was such a, we'll say, controversial figure. I'm sure you may have heard his name before in various rock songs and movies and things like that, of people who try real hard to be edgy and interesting when really he's one of the least interesting characters in this whole story. He's just a dude with a lot of opinions. But that is pretty much it for the Thoth deck. This is the second most popular form of the tarot, but by far and away, the Rider-Waite-Smith is the most popular. All of my decks are based on the Rider-Waite-Smith, so that is what we are going to be dealing with today. And that is it. You have survived the history portion. So now, thank you for hanging in there, sticking with me. We are going to actually look at some tarot cards now. So I'm going to cut away. My face is going to be gone completely. I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm a little bit behind the scenes magic here. I'm filming the tabletop and my talking parts at separate times. So I want you guys to focus more on the table. So I'm going to go away so that you can see that stuff. So I will meet you at the table in just a second. All right. Hey y'all, welcome to the tabletop. We are going to be looking at some of my favorite cards. Hopefully, maybe we're going to kind of see what the deck gives us today to look at some different card meanings and some symbols that you can look out for if you are learning the cards for yourself. So I'm going to be looking at a version of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck called the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot. Come on, camera, focus. There we go. The Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot. This is the exact same images as the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. They're just kind of like recolored and kind of updated. So it's very pretty and lovely. If you are wanting to get a good beginner's deck, this is going to be a good one. It's going to give you a good foundation for learning things in the future. So let's go ahead and shuffle it up and see what kind of fun things we get. You might notice as we go along that I'm bad at shuffling. There are no rules to how you shuffle. You can do it however you want. I will just give it one more and then we'll see what we are going to learn about today. All right. So first up, oh, we have Temperance. Lovely. Let me bring that up to you guys. So I mentioned this when I was talking about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but this is one of those examples of that kind of Christian iconography coming into it with our angel here. So Temperance is all about finding balance. It's a major arcana card, and major arcana means that it is a major issue in your life. So if you are pulling this card, it means that you are having some huge issues with balance and finding your boundaries and things like that. So we have the cup balancing here between, or the water balancing here between the cups, excuse me. Cups are the suit of emotion, they are the suit of water, and anytime we see water, we want to be aware of our emotions. So for getting this, then we're probably feeling a little bit stressed out, a little bit kind of like we're juggling everything in our lives. We need to really take a step back and reconsider. Some other things to think about. Again, another symbol of balance here, 1 foot on earth and 1 foot in the water. And then the sun coming up between the two mountain peaks back here. A lot of trying to find balance, a lot of symbolism. So that is the Temperance card. I have had in the past people ask me about card reversals. It really just depends on the card. I don't have the reversal for Temperance memorized, unfortunately. Maybe editing me will pop it up right here. But that is the Temperance card. Let's see what else we got. Oh, these are just the cards I was looking at earlier. That's all right. I didn't do a great job at shuffling, but I've shown you guys the Magician a lot today. He's one of my favorites, so we'll go ahead and talk about him. The Magician is all about learning the power for yourself. So there's a lot of symbolism here with as above, so below. So as it is on heaven, so it shall be here on earth. So that means that you have the power to do things. You have to make sure, again, that you are very balanced in kind of taking that power for yourself. The magician has mastery over all of the suits here, and he knows that he knows everything. This is a smart dude or a smart lady or non-binary pal. This is just somebody who is really confident and really competent. When it is reversed, it is somebody who is a little bit too confident and maybe has some unearned confidence. They are someone who thinks they're a little bit smarter than they actually are. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna make sure that we get some suit cards here. I wanna get one that I like. I'll let you guys look at the flip through with me. Let me see here. I think this is a pretty easy one to understand. So we have our, this is the Seven of Cups. Again, cups are all about emotion. And this card tells you that you have a lot of choices that you need to make, and you are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by your choices. So none of them are really bad. You have the victory laurels here, or some beauty up here, a castle for security or wealth. You have a lot of different options here. It can maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe you're getting a lot of job options, or you have some suitors coming at your door. Ooh. Either way, you are not going to make a bad choice. The worst choice that you can make is choosing not to make one at all. So that is the kind of lesson that we can take away from the Seven of Cups and kind of how we got there of our figure here. There's no face or really details on the figure, so they're very overwhelmed. They're not really standing out on their own. What's really taking all of the attention here is all of the cups and all of the various different things filling them. So that is the part of the card that we need to be focusing on when we read it. You can really, especially with the Rider-Waite-Smith, intuit a lot about what the meaning is going to be just based on kind of looking at the picture and figuring out, okay, well, what's the important thing here? What am I supposed to be looking at? We will do one more just random draw, and then I'm going to tell you about the last two suits that we haven't looked at yet. So this is the Ace of Wands. Come on, camera. The camera just loves the magician. He commands all of the attention. But this is the Ace of Wands. So wands are the suit of, I always get them mixed up. Wands are the suit of fire. So it is all about ambition, intellect, work. It's not so much the careers as it is the passions in life. So if you're getting the ace, aces are new beginnings. They are the start. The heavens are handing you your baton or your wand. You are ready to go, to seize your passions and move forward with whatever your project is. So that is the Ace of Wands. Now I will cheat and track down a sword and a pentacle for us. And ha ha ha, speaking of cheating, here is ya man. We are all about the sevens today. This is the Seven of Swords, the sneaky little monster. The Seven of Swords tells us that someone's lying to us. So swords are the suit of air. They are about travel. They are about intellect. They are about swords and getting in fights. And in this case, somebody is stealing all of those swords and sneaking away with them. So you need to be careful of a deceitful person in your midst. Somebody who's going to take your opportunities, take your battles, and try to get them away from you. Last but certainly not least is the coins. Oh, the queen is lovely, but I don't really want to deal with the queen right now. Let's see what else we got. All of my aces are showing up too. I want something fun. And my sevens. Here we go. We'll do the 5. We're gonna end on kind of a bummer note. Sorry, guys. So this is the 5 of Pentacles. So Pentacles are all about money, obviously, but they're also just about anything that brings you security. So it's the hearth, the home, health, wealth. I kind of try to think of them as the Hobbit of the suits. Anything that brings you comfort is going to be kind of wrapped up in the pentacles. Anything that brings you like physical comfort. So with the 5 here, we have our figures, one of whom has a broken leg and neither of them has shoes. And they are walking past the church windows here. So what this tells us is that we may be feeling like we are in a position where we are helpless, or things are just not working out for us. But we have the opportunities nearby to get help. So you need to not be afraid to ask for help if you need it. So our figures are walking outside of the church here. So even though it is very cold and desolate out where they are, you can see the light glowing through the windows, and that is where our pentacles are, where our security is. So nine times out of 10, you are going to be the figure, or another person in your life is going to be the figure. So if you are one of these two, you are maybe not having the greatest time of it right now. You need to remember that help is out there. You just need to ask for it. So that's just kind of a quick guide on how you can read the cards for yourself. You can go through and do that with every single card. Most decks that you buy will have a book with them, like the Radiant Wise Spirit does. And if not, I have some resources that I will mention at the end that you can use as well to learn some of the card meanings and study a little bit. But either way, I hope that this helped you on your kind of journey towards learning some more about the cards. It helped me with my pop quiz here. If you have a specific question, then you can leave that in the comments. And if I don't see it right away, then Sandy and Jamie will let me know and I will come back and answer it for you. So I am going to clear my table here, kick it back to Big Me, and I will meet you guys back here in a second for some readings. All right, I'm gonna pop up real quick again to tell you about our readings that we are going to do for today. If you are not interested in getting a reading, no worries. Thank you for hanging out with me so far. You are dismissed, you are free to go. If you are interested in getting a reading, this is the part of the presentation for you. Thanks for sticking with me through all the history parts. Here is the part you've been waiting for. So the way this is going to work, if you have watched YouTubers do tarot readings, as I have spent many an hour doing, this will be something familiar to you. But I'm going to cut away to the table here in a minute. I'm going to show you 3 different piles. You will choose the pile you feel the most drawn to, and then we will do a reading for each pile. You will skip to the one that you chose and find out what you need to hear today. So I will meet you guys back at the tabletop in just a second, and then I will come back at the very end to do a wrap up and a goodbye. But if you are heading out now because you are not interested in a reading, thank you again for hanging out with me for so long. Here we go. So like Big Me said, we are going to do some readings today. So I have 3 different cards here, 1, 2, and 3. And you can take a moment, think about it, think about which number draws you the most. I'll zoom them in so you can look at the old card catalog cards. Come on, zoom. See, aren't they cute? These are actually from Adair County. I got them when I was working there, so. There's number 2, and here is number 3. So we have 3 different types of catalog cards, or checkout cards, and I will give you a moment to think about which one you are most interested in, which number draws you. If you don't have a preference, you are more than welcome to pick all 3, or just like throw it in a random number generator and pick one that way. It doesn't matter to me. I will say all 3 will use a different deck, so if you want to see what some of the other decks look like, then you can watch all 3 of them. Go for it, go wild. Otherwise, I will be quiet for a moment so you can think, and then we will skip ahead and go to our readings. Okay, hello group 1. Welcome to your part of the reading. I hope you are not lost, but here is where we are. We are with group 1, and today your reading is going to be with the Tarot of Pagan Cats. This is a very fun and honestly a little bit silly deck. Here's a bit of what the box looks like. So that is what our reading is going to be with today. I will go ahead and start shuffling here in just a second. We are going to be doing a 2-card reading for you today. So we're going to do 1 card straight up and down and then 1 card across it. So the one straight up and down is going to be the situation card. It's about what's going on in your life. And then the one across is going to be the advice card. It's going to tell you kind of what you need to be on the lookout for. My lighting has gone absolutely bananas. Let me try to fix that for a second there. There, that's a little bit better. So I will go ahead and start shuffling. Oh, goodness gracious. What do we have here? The Hanged Man, interesting. I love that cat. Look how cute that is. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna start shuffling. There is really no right or wrong way to shuffle. You can do it literally however you want, and you just go until you feel like, until you feel like it is time to stop. Everybody has kind of their own method for deciding when that is. I will let you kind of experiment and decide your method. But I'm just going to keep on shuffling and thinking about what our group 1 needs to hear today. It's always good to think about your question while you are shuffling, even if, you are maybe just doing this for fun. It will at least get you in the mindset of being ready to hear some advice. So I'm going to think about what advice our group 1 friends need to hear while I keep on shuffling. So what does group 1 need to hear today? What are they looking for? Let me see, am I done yet? I think 1 more good one and then we'll be done. 2 more, I lied. Okay, now I think we're done. Let's do it. All right, so again, we're gonna do a straight up and down card for the situation and then 1 straight across for your advice. So here's our situation card. The Hermit. Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. Let me bring that up for you guys so you can see it. Here's the Hermit, number 9 in the major arcana. So that's your situation. And your advice card is going to be, boom, what is this? The Queen of Pentacles. All right, let me bring her up to you. Come on, focus. There we go. There she is. Isn't she cute? All right, that is our advice for today. Interesting. So the Hermit tells me that you guys are maybe feeling a little bit isolated, a little bit alone. It's kind of the time for that. Let me scoot this down a bit. Let me scoot it here a bit. There we go. That's out of the light, I think. I apologize for the lighting situation. We will do the best that we can. But the Hermit tells us that we're maybe feeling a little bit isolated, a little bit alone. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. This can be like kind of some time that we're stepping back and trying to reflect, and more of like, I don't know, like a monk going into a cave for meditation, more so than like, being locked in solitary. So that is kind of where we are right now. We might be feeling a little bit alone, but it's important to remember that, like I said, that isn't a bad thing. There are things that you kind of need to be able to process on your own, away from other people. So I think, all things said, it's not the worst situation to be in. Our advice, the Queen of Pentacles, I'm going to double check my book real quick. It's a little bit difficult for me, I'll be honest, with some of the more artsy decks because I am still learning. So I'm going to just double check and make sure that I know what I want to say before I say it. So let me set her back down and I will crack open my book here. If you are still learning, never be afraid to check the book. It is totally all right. I have gotten readings from professionals where they take a second and they're like, you know what, I want to double check that what I'm getting from this is right. And you know what, I would rather that they check the book and make sure that they know what they're talking about rather than tell me something completely out of nowhere that is not going to be very useful to me. So that is what I'm going to do for you guys real quick. Okay. This is the little, okay. So I think what this is trying to tell us is that you are the ruler of your own house. You're in charge of your life. So the Queen of Pentacles, let me bring her back up for you. You can see here she's in her lovely rose garden looking over everything with her pentacle. Is that a ball? I think it might be a ball of yarn. That's adorable. But remember, the Pentacles is all about the house, the home, about security and financial well-being, all of those things. And our queens are people who are in charge of that, and in the traditional tarot have more of a feminine energy. So do with that what you will. Think of this as being like kind of like ultimate mom friend, even if you don't have kids. You know, we all have that friend who is just ultimate mom. So what we want to take from this with the Hermit is that I think there's two different ways to go here. So if you are maybe feeling a little bit isolated, maybe feeling a little bit you know, separated from the other people in your life, you can reach out to this person, the person that you thought of when I was describing this. That's the person that you should be reaching out to. You know, it's okay to let yourself be taken care of. If that's what you need, then, you know, we all need a little bit of help sometimes, and there's no shame in having to ask for that. I think the other way to think about this is if you are kind of taking that time away, and trying to, you know, focus on yourself and develop your own ideas and try to become a better person, then what you want to focus on is how you're going to get to this point. What does being in charge of your life look like? What is your goal for that? How are you going to become the Queen of Pentacles? Is that going to be through, you know, maybe reworking some finances, or focusing on your house and maybe doing some home repairs, or, you know, focusing on your career, those kinds of things. What does success look like for you, and how are you going to get there? Overall, even though the Hermit is kind of sad to look at, let me try to shade this a little bit. Even though the Hermit is kind of sad to look at, it is not a sad card. Everybody needs that little bit of alone time. And I think having that Queen of Pentacles there, that's very positive. That is somebody that we definitely want to have in our corner. So I think overall, you're gonna be okay, even if we are maybe going through a little bit of a rough patch. So that is what I have for you, Group 1. If you would like to stick around and hear the rest of the groups, then you are more than welcome to. Otherwise, I will see you at the end of the video for some resources. Hello, Group 2. Welcome to your reading. I hope you are in the correct place. If you are not, then feel free to stick around anyway. Otherwise, you can skip back to Group 1 or skip forward to Group 3, and we will meet you again at the end. But Group 2, it is time for your reading. So let me scoot this on out of the way. We are going to be using the Old English Tarot today by Maggie Neen. Here's what the box art looks like. Isn't it cute? I love it so much. This was actually my first tarot deck. So you guys are getting a look at the classics, and you can tell it was my first. Look how torn up that box is. Look how bad it is, poor thing. The deck is still lovely though, and that is the thing that matters. So here's a look at the deck. I will start shuffling here. We are going to be doing an advice reading today for Group 2. So we will do a two card reading. So one straight up and down and one crossing it. The one that is straight up and down is going to be our situation, and the one that crosses it is going to be our advice. So let me start shuffling here and be thinking about what advice we are looking for group 2. It's always good to be focused on what it is that you are hoping to learn, even if if you're a person who's just kind of here for the fun, you don't necessarily, believe in, any of the other parts that come with tarot. It, at least by focusing on that, kind of gets you in the mindset to hear some advice and maybe consider your problems from a new perspective, which can be helpful, even if it isn't spirits guiding the way for that advice. So I would always recommend focusing on what you would like to learn. And when you shuffle, you can shuffle it any old way that you would like. If you feel like you need to spread it all over the table, that is totally fine. I prefer to just do a very basic shuffle like this. These cards are very sticky today. My goodness, they are not wanting to shuffle very nicely for me. Maybe I will spread them around on the table. Ugh. Ah. All right, well, we're gonna keep that out. Ugh. All right, there we go. Sorry, I had to readjust there for a second. This is the 5 of Cups. We will come back to that in a moment, but anytime something falls out face up like that, I like to keep it in my corner and think about it. So I'm just gonna keep shuffling till I feel like I need to stop. So what does group 2 need to hear today? What kind of advice is group 2 looking for? Am I done yet? I don't know. I don't think so. It's hard to decide when to stop. Eventually you just have to. Everybody has their own method for how they decide when. Eventually you just quit, and that's when. All right, I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. All right. So again, we're gonna do a straight up and down for a situation, and then we are going to cross it with some advice, and we are going to keep this one that fell out kind of in the back of our minds while we look at those other cards. So first up for our situation, Knave of Coins reversed. All right, Knave is what pages are called in this deck. So we will come back to that in a sec. All right, and then 6 of Cups. Ooh, we're getting a lot of cups here. So remember, cups are all about emotion and relationships. Let me scoot these down a bit, try to get them better in the light. All right, we'll figure it out. I'll bring these up so you can look at them. So here's our 5 of Cups. This is the one that fell out. This deck is much more minimalistic. You can see a couple of little figures down here. What are they doing? Oh, he's hitting the drums on the kid's back. I think that's a kid. All right, and here is our Knave of Coins. So again, knaves are pages in this deck. Come on, focus, buddy. Thank you. There he is, our lad. And last but not least, our 6 of Cups. And this lady is probably my favorite person in the whole deck. I love her so much. She's hilarious. She's just wobbling around with her cups, her bells, whatever they are. They're so great. All right, so the cups I know for sure. The knave I'm going to double check on here in a second, but 5 of Cups tells us to walk away from a situation that no longer serves us. So in the traditional, in the Rider-Waite-Smith, this is a stack of cups and then the figure is walking away dramatically into the darkness. Here you can see our cups are starting to spill over. So we need to kind of let go of those past things that have hurt us, that are maybe not, just not really helping us anymore. So whatever that is, with it being cups, it's going to be something that hurts emotionally, can be a relationship that doesn't serve you anymore. I've seen this with careers as well. It can really be anything, but just whatever it is that you've been kind of holding on to that's kind of, comes back to haunt you every once in a while. You need to remember that it's okay to walk away from it. So kind of keep that in mind while we do the rest of the reading. And like I said, I'm going to double check on that Knave of Coins. I told group 1 this too, but sometimes with these decks that are not the Rider-Waite-Smith, I can double I guess I doubt myself more. So I'm just going to double check real quick because I don't want to tell you guys something that's not going to be correct and then not be helpful. If you are a person who is learning to read, then by all means do the same thing. Check your books. It's okay. That's what they're there for. I've had professional readings and the reader checked the book while I was there and it was great. She just needed to like double check something real quick and I was like, awesome, go for it. I would rather that she tell me something that's helpful than tell me something that's wrong. So I'm just double checking on our Knave of Coins real quick. I was correct, holla. Yeah. All right, this isn't exactly how I would read it, but I think it's pretty close. You'll get more of a feel of it as you do it more. You'll notice too that some of the books have just different meanings in them. They're close, but they're not the same. And you'll start to get a feel for the ones that read the most true to you. So our Knave of Coins. So this is somebody who is maybe a little bit immature. They have a little bit more growing left to do. Especially when they are reversed. This means that you're being a little bit illogical and making some poor choices. With coins, that's mainly going to be poor investments, or maybe not managing your money well, things like that. This could also be somebody who is just not really willing to grow up. They're kind of trapped in that youthfulness. And specifically with it being coins, that's going to be in areas like spending all of their money on fun stuff instead of on the stuff that they actually need, that kind of thing. So this could be you. If that rings true for you, then that's something you want to keep an eye out for. This could also be somebody in your life that you maybe need to, be a little bit weary of. Really, think about whether they are, again, with our Five of Cups here, are they somebody that is serving you, or are you holding on to them because they've always been there? So not telling you to, go out and get divorced or anything like that, but just kind of think about what you are wanting out of this relationship and whether that person is the person who's best for you. So that's our situation. Our advice here, our Six of Cups. The Six of Cups is lovely. I love the Six of Cups. This is the card of nostalgia. So it's all about looking back on childhood memories or memories from long ago, and just kind of getting, caught up in the wonder of it, kind of the rose-colored look at life. With this being crossed with our Knave here, I don't know. I think for someone, this is going to ring very true for a relationship. Maybe this is a childhood sweetheart that you didn't really, they didn't really grow up with you the way that they needed to. So for that person, I'm very sorry. But I think too, I think this could be being afraid of growing up as well. I'm holding on to that nostalgia so strongly that it doesn't allow us to kind of progress and become the person that we need to become. So I would say for those people, it's okay to still love your childhood and love the things that you liked when you were a kid. I still listen to the same music I did when I was a kid. I still play a lot of the same games. It's still a big part of who I am, but you can't let that stop you from growing. So try to find a way to balance those two parts of your life and of yourself. And remember to always let go of those things that don't really help you anymore, even if it maybe is a little bit painful at the start. It's going to be what's best for you in the long run. So I hope that was helpful. I apologize if it was too helpful. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get these readings. So if that is you, then I am very sorry. I hope that things work out for the better for you. I'm sure that everything will be okay. If you would like to stick around and hear Group 3's reading, then awesome. I will be getting to them in just a second. Otherwise, I will meet you at the end to talk about some resources. All right, hello Group 3. I hope you were in the right place. This is the reading for Group 3, hence the 3. If If you are not in the right place, then feel free to stick around anyway. Otherwise, you can skip on back to the readings that you were actually looking for, or skip forward to the resources and the end of today's program. But today, for group 3, we have the 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot for you. So here is a look at the book here. I will scoot that 3 out of the way. And here, whoop. Here is a look at the box. This is my newest deck, and I'm low-key obsessed with it. I think the art is so cool, but I'm also super into tattoos and tattoo art style, so it's very much my deal. Hopefully you like it as well. But here's a look at the deck. Da-da-da. It's hard to tell, but there are like roses drawn on the back of here. And here is a quick preview of some of the art. So I will go ahead and start on a shuffle in here. We are going to be doing a 2-card advice reading for you today. So we will have 1 card straight up and down and 1 card across it. So the card that is straight up and down is going to be the situation. The card that crosses it is going to be your advice. So that is our goal for the day. I will go ahead and start on a shuffle in here. While I'm shuffling, I'm just going to be thinking about what advice group 3 needs to hear today. It's always good to concentrate on a question or something that you are kind of wanting help with or advice on while you are shuffling, even if you don't, necessarily, oh goodness, all right, let's go over there. Even if you don't necessarily believe in what's going on, it's still good to kind of have that in your mind, so you're ready to hear some advice and maybe get a new perspective, even if you don't necessarily believe that advice was, handed down from the ancestors or whatever. And when you are shuffling, you are just going to shuffle literally however you want. I like to do just a basic hand shuffle like that. You can also just spread it all around on the table. And then you stop when you feel like it's time to stop. So I'm gonna keep on going here. So what advice does group 3 need to hear today? I apologize if you can hear my phone going off in the background. It's on the other side of the room, or I would go turn it off. I think maybe, I don't know. Do you guys think we're done? I think we might be done. I'm gonna say we're done. I'm calling it. Sometimes you just have to call it. So this guy who fell out, this is our Emperor. Let me flip him up the right side for you. He looks super cool. But he fell out quite dramatically when we were shuffling, so that tells me that we need to hang on to him. Sometimes if I know that they fell out because I'm bad at shuffling, I will go ahead and put them back in. But I don't know, this guy, he feels like he needs to be here, so I'm gonna keep him. And he did fall out reversed, so I'm gonna lay him down reversed. I'm just gonna put him up there for something for us to think about as we do the rest of the reading. So let's grab our 2 cards real quick. This is our situation card. The Star. Oh, isn't she lovely? Let me bring her up to you. The Star. She's gorgeous. We'll come back to her in a sec. Let me grab our advice card. That is the 3 of Cups. Yay! Oh, good. All right. Well, I don't know what that Emperor is doing here, because it seems like things are going well for y'all. Let me scoot these down a bit so they're a little more central for you. So for our Fallout card here, our Jump card, we have the Emperor reversed. The Emperor reversed is somebody who's a real jerk. This is gonna be the low point of the reading, I apologize. But they are somebody who tries way too hard to be in charge of like every situation, they're very their way or the highway. And that is, just something you want to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the reading. If you know a person like that, or if you maybe, sometimes can be like that, I think we all have a little bit of the Emperor in us. So if you are keep those tendencies in mind as we go through the rest of the reading. Next up, we have the Star. The Star is always a pretty card. So the Star is, it is a pretty basic card to read. It tells us that there is hope even in our darkest times, just like there's always going to be stars at night, even if you maybe can't see them. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. She tells me that you're feeling really hopeful, even if you are maybe going through a little bit of a tough time, as I think we all are. But you are trying to keep your eye on, on the good things ahead, on the light in our life, on our goals. So yeah, pretty good place to be. That's kind of where you are right now. Our advice, is the Three of Cups. You heard me say this is one of my favorites. So the Three of Cups is all about sisterhood and friendships. It's about finding your people and just having like your group that just jives with you. It's I have this group that I lived with in college, and they are definitely those people for me where we just like, when we are together, we are the perfect crew. And that is definitely what this card is all about. So with this being on our advice, whatever it is that you're hoping for, whatever it is that you're looking for, you want to look to the people in your life who can help you and support you. You have support around you. You have, like I said, you have that group of people, or maybe you are looking for that group. Whichever the case is, those are the people who are going to help you get to your star here. So you want to be on the lookout for them. What that means with our Emperor, sometimes when we want something so much, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of let things run their course. And I think that might be what our Emperor is trying to warn us of. We're so focused on our goal, on our star, that we want to do whatever it takes to make it happen. The Emperor reverse warns us that, some things you can't control. And if you try to control them, you're just going to come across being a huge jerk. So, I think that's our main takeaway for today, is try to go with the flow a little bit more. Good things are going to come to you, and you have the people around you who are going to support you while you get there. Just try not to force things to happen. It's okay to just kind of let it flow, let it go a little more naturally, and it'll work out in the end. So I think that's all that I have for you today. I hope that was helpful. I hope that made sense. If it did not, I apologize. You can leave some comments, or you can email me. I'll have my contact information at the end if you would like a little bit more clarification on what you heard today. Otherwise, I will let you guys go. I will see you in just a second for our wrap up and our resources. And thank you for coming to the reading today. All right. Thank you guys for coming today. I hope that that was helpful to you. I hope you learned something today. If you didn't learn anything, I hope you at least had fun hanging out with me for however long I've been talking here. If you are interested in learning more about this, I have a couple of different resources that you can reach out to. My number one resource is the book Kitchen Table Tarot by Melissa Sonova. I talked about this last time, but it's my absolute favorite tarot book. Melissa is a St. Louis reader and writer. She published the Kitchen Table Tarot to be a real no-nonsense approach to learning tarot cards. It's very much in line with my approach to life and approach to tarot and all of those things, so I definitely recommend it. I have listened to the audiobook on Hoopla twice now, I believe. There are also a lot of other really fun tarot books available on Hoopla or here in the library. You can talk to your librarians about setting up an appointment to grab those. But online, there are also a lot of other wonderful resources out there. Some of my favorites are the Biddy Tarot, Ethany, and Little Red Tarot. So Biddy is a lot of, she does a lot of really deep dives into the card meanings, and she talks about the art and how that influences it. And she's a wonderful resource for anybody who's just beginning, just starting out and needing a little bit of extra help. Don't let her pushing you to take all of her classes drive you away, because there's a lot of wonderful free resources on there that you do not have to pay for. Ethne is going to be something similar, a good resource for beginners, but that's going to be more for people who are interested in more of a Wicca approach, or interested in things like crystals and ritual and that kind of thing. So if that's what you're looking for, Ethne is going to be a good resource for you. And Little Red Tarot is a little bit different from the other two. It does have card meanings on there, but the number one thing that it is great for is for deck reviews, and for purchasing decks. Little Red is primarily a shop. I'm not sponsored, obviously, but they do a really great job of highlighting queer creators and people of color who have made tarot decks. So if you are looking to support a specific kind of creator, or you want a deck that is going to represent you, then that is going to be a good place for you to start. So those are my other resources for you. If you want to talk to me more about what happened today, then you can leave your questions in the comments, or you can follow me on my new YouTube channel. I just started it, so hopefully by the time you guys watch this, there will actually be a video on there. But that is Crowflies Tarot, or you can email me at crowfliestarot@gmail.com, or again, just leave a comment on this video, and Sandy and Jamie will pass it along to me. So thank you guys very much for watching. Again, my name is Taylor. This has been Tarot, and thank you for hanging out. Thank you to Adara. And go check out lots and lots of tarot books from your library. Bye guys.